Thanks for tuning in to this special edition of the Best Practices Show podcast. This year we were presented with something we didn't expect, which was a pandemic, and a lot of us were shut down. During that time, we put together a COVID-19 dental relief conference, and we had some of the greatest teachers in all of dentistry come forward to inspire this incredible industry. In this series, we're going to go back and take a look at the best of the best from the COVID-19 Dental Relief Conference. We hope you enjoy it.
I know that your world is around cybersecurity, and our world is about helping teams come together and get their systems in order. So I know you're the expert here, and we're going to let you kind of share a little bit about how you got into this, what your daily work looks like. And then I know Kirk and Jenny, as I step away, Kirk and Jenny are going to lead some really important questions that will probably be showing up in the chat. But I would love for you to just start us off and share a little bit about how this landed in your lap, this whole cybersecurity world, and what we need to know.
Well, 31 years ago, I married a guy that was really heavy into technology and computers, and it was either learn them or we would not have anything in common. So I learned about computers. And then 24 years ago, I was kind of thrown into the dental world to help a friend. And like I said, 24 years and still there. And so in 2015, I took what I knew, which is technology. Actually, before then, I was helping doctors to implement paperless practices from like 2009, 2010, but I was doing that part-time. In 2015, I realized that with the changes in the landscape that we needed a more aggressive platform to go to. And so I spent some time getting certified in cybersecurity. So I hold a ISC squared certification called Healthcare Information Security Privacy Practitioner. And I'm also HEMS certified, which is a certified associate in healthcare information management systems. So my certifications are international. So, but I can work in medical, but loving dentistry like I do, that's my primary focus.
Yeah, I have so many questions for you in this section, but number one, can you give us a state of the union on this particular topic prior to the pandemic? And then why is this session we're going to be talking about so important during the pandemic?
Well, prior to the pandemic, this was a way getting into, you mentioned the Wisconsin breach, but that was only one of many breaches that happened in 2019, 20, and we've even seen them happening in 2020. We're seeing them happen now. They're happening today. It's really important that we protect our patients' information because patients give us that information, trusting us that we're going to protect it. And so when we give them that information, when a patient gives us that information, that is the basis for that trust relationship to begin with. And then we want that patient to trust you when you're, as the doctor, you say you need to have a surgical procedure, or you need to have a crown. You don't want them to second guess, is this dentist really saying I need this? Because that trust relationship is there. So by keeping that patient's information together and private is important. And we also have to remember that we're all patients in a dental practice and in medical practice. Do we really want our information out there? So it has an overcompassing effect on your practice. And your information system, I know how much that equipment costs, but it's the old MasterCard thing. What's in your wallet? What's in your computer box? Priceless.
Yeah, and so I was actually, this is just an interesting things that we don't understand. So I was talking to a lot of dentists at Seattle Study Club Symposium, and I was telling them the story about the Wisconsin breach, and they're like, "Oh, I got hacked. I got hacked." One dentist said, "I got hacked too," and they wanted Bitcoin, $40,000, and my attorney said, "Pay them." He goes, "Pay them? No, like so."
No.
Take us through this, the basics, the do's, the don't. Like, where should I start? If I'm a young dentist watching this and I've never worried about this, what should I do as a proactive measure? Just the basics, do's and don'ts.
Stop looking at HIPAA as regulation, first of all. I know that we in healthcare, we have a lot of overbearing, what we consider overbearing relationships and regulations. But if we look at the security rule in HIPAA as a guide, as a tool, it is really best practices that we should be using in any industry and as well as in our homes. If you think about it, so one of the first things that you're required to do under the HIPAA security rule is to do a risk analysis. But before you can do a risk analysis, you need to know what your assets are. You need to know what computers you have, what devices you have. You need to have an inventory list. You should have an inventory list at home and in your practice, because if something happens, you're going to want to be able to give your insurance company what your inventory is, correct? And then you want to know what your applications are, because those applications you have to pay money for, so they're part of your assets. So you want to know what your inventory is, and you want to know what risk or what would happen if that got lost. What would happen if I could not find my social security card when I needed it, or my passport when I needed it? We would all go into a panic if we were getting ready to go on a cruise and couldn't find that. So it's knowing where your information is created, transmitted, or stored. But if we look at HIPAA as a guide, as a tool, it's incremental. We can use it to implement best practices. And for a young dentist starting out, it can be the foundation of his practice. Everything can center around his security management program, which is the second thing that's required. And so, I don't know about you, I had 3 children, and we had a rule, a policy in our house that if you were the last one at home, it was your responsibility to check all the doors before you headed out to school. It was very easy. And we have to have the same mindset in our practices as well. If you're the last person leaving, have a policy that reminds whoever's there, go check the doors and make sure they're locked. So it can be a guide, a great tool to protect your practice and to protect your biggest investment.
And as far as there's other questions people have, passwords, all those things, like
Yes.
I have some questions. Like, we have a lot of password cyber vaults that holds all the passwords. I mean, is that a good place to start? I would love our listeners to get a checklist of things to do today. Like, what should we know and what can we do?
So what you should know today, because a lot of dentists now are working from home. And so they are going into their offices remotely. And so things that we can do today, every home in America, whether we're in a pandemic or not, should have these basic security controls in place in their homes. So the first thing is passwords, as you mentioned. Have different passwords for every application and have different passwords for each device in your home. A lot of us have the little boxes that you can call and tell them to turn off the lights, or to set a timer, or order from Amazon. I can't say it because mine's right over there. But have a different password, because it's layers of security. There was a time, I live in the country, and there was a time where we didn't lock our doors. We just left them open and we left. Then times evolved and we started locking our doors. Times evolved, we started a deadbolt in locking our doors. And now we have Ring cameras and we have alarm systems. Why? Because things have evolved to that point. but those are layers of security. If somebody wants to break in my house, they're going to break in my house. But it's the controls that might deter them that, you know what, this house is too hard to get through. I'm going to go on down the street to somebody who maybe only is locking their doors. We want to have that same mindset with the World Wide Web and with our homes and with our practices. So a lot of doctors now are remoting into their practices. So it's a good time to make sure that what we have in our homes is secure. So the internet provider gives you a box that feeds your internet into your house. Now they give you a little password for your house, but the administrative passwords to those boxes are very free to get. So we want to have some layers of security in place to block anything from coming in. So the first thing we want to get is a firewall. They're not very expensive. You can order them from Amazon or from Best Buy, and you can block or control the traffic, the web traffic that's coming into your house and going out of your house. And then
That's
the next
very
thing
important to know right there.
It is. And they're not very expensive at all. We actually have one that it sits in our guest bedroom. So we wanted it to be, kind of cutesy. And so we have one called a Cujo. And we have twin grandsons, and they're 4. But when Cujo is happy, he has a smiley face. And when he's being attacked, he has a mad face. And even my grandsons know to go tell their grandfather that Cujo is not happy. And so that firewall can control what information comes in, what information goes out. The next thing we want to have is a current wireless router. We have a tendency that if it's not broke, not to fix it. And please spell that firewall.
Is that Cujo? Like Cujo the dog?
Yes, Cujo.
Don't mess with Cujo. Okay, so
don't mess with Cujo.
Yeah. Now wait,
I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but
yeah, this is really good stuff. Okay, so I want to go back to a couple things because
Sure.
This is really good. Make sure you have a good firewall. And then we're going to get into Wi-Fi. But let's go back to the passwords thing because this is really important. It's really important to know that because the age-old joke a couple years ago was, I use the same password for everything. Well, once a hacker gets your password, they can pretty much hack into everything you do. And so there are vehicles like 1Password, LastPass, where you can have an encrypted password that's 20 to 100 characters long. You don't even know it. You're the only one that has the ultimate key, and you can share keys with team members. So I could share a key with Jenny and she gets access, but she can't see the password, but she's is that true?
Correct. Absolutely.
How stable are those things?
It goes back to that trust. They are trusting that company. My family uses the Keeper, but LastPass, the Keeper, all of these companies, they know that their customers are trusting them with very sensitive information. Just like as we in the dental field are trusting with patient information, they know that they're being trusted with the key to most of our applications. So they have very strong security protocols in place. But yes, it is important to have long passwords, complex passwords, because the more breaches that we have, the more listing of your passwords are on the dark web. And even now they're starting to be on the regular web. So it's important that you use different passwords for different applications. And if there are applications that you don't really care about, then I can see you using a little password. But any hacker that gets into that application may have a door to the other applications on your computer. So passwords is a added line of defense.
Awesome. Now going to the Wi-Fi router.
Okay, Wi-Fi routers, the reason that we want them to be current is we have this tendency that if, generated while we're there, generated passwords are fine. as long as you have a means and method of maintaining them, like through LastPass or through a password keeper, because we'll never be able to remember them, and nothing is more aggravating and frustrating than to need a password and not have it. That said, another layer of security would be two-factor authentication. Anytime you can enable two-factor authentication, you should take advantage of it. Again, it may be a little inconvenience. For me, I have two-factor authentication on every application possible. And invariably, when I need it to log on to my bank or Amazon, my phone is either upstairs or on a counter, and I have to physically get up and get it. I just remind myself I'm getting exercise.
Now explain what that is, because it's basically an added, hey, is this you? Because somebody else is trying to.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It's because, and you can do this with almost every app. Gmail, it gives you usually a text on your phone, or however you configure it, a text on your phone or an email that comes up and it says you need to have a code. So you either get it through email, you can get it through text message. You can also, there is there's an authenticator application where you can add, and it will give you a 6-digit number that you have 45 seconds to put into the application. But that gives you an extra layer to know, hey, wait a minute, I'm not logging on to my Gmail account. Why is somebody trying to get into my Gmail account? And Gmail, by the way, is one of the easiest platforms to hack.
Why is
just because all you got to do is watch YouTube and just YouTube how to hack a Gmail account, and it's there for you. So that 2 layers of security to give you that information that somebody's trying to get into your account is critical and is vital. And so that passwords are really important, that two-factor authentication.
So I see an interesting question coming in saying, if we don't use wireless, is the firewall still going to be important for us if we're an office that's not using anything, no wireless networks?
No computer is the firewall is required. It is necessary whether you're wired or wireless, because even when you're wired to the Ethernet cable, data is still going in and out. And if you're projecting out to the internet at all, if you're on that World Wide Web, you need to have a firewall. The only reason you would not have a firewall is if you did not transmit anything or ever Google anything or have the internet in your office, which I only know of one office like that.
So on that note, there was also a question that came in about the safety of backing up all our data to the cloud every night. So how do we ensure that? Okay.
Let me get there. Let me go back to the Wi-Fi. So it's layers of what you need now. If it's not broke, we have a tendency not to fix it. And a lot of us are running wireless routers in our home that are 5 and 6 years old because they work. But the technology in those routers have changed. And the encryption keys and the encryption that is being used in those routers that are 3, 4, 5 years old is out of date and has known vulnerabilities that hackers use to get into your house or into your offices. And so it's real important. We talk about with IT, because I always recommend to doctors that they have a really strong IT partner, and I'll go into that in a few. But having a current router that you've purchased within the last year. I got a email yesterday actually that there's a problem with a Linksys router that they've discovered. Hackers are reading this information as well as us in security. So it's real important that we try to stay one step ahead. And that we're in a war on our own with security. These hackers are not usually coming from the US. We see that they're usually coming from other countries that don't like our policies. And so they use this as a means to fund their campaigns. Bitcoin at one point 2 weeks ago was up to $9,900. It has dropped. It's down to 66 as of yesterday. But the ransomware attacks have not quit. Just because we are in pandemic world, the ransomware attacks have not stopped.
Now,
so
I've heard those terms a lot. I don't know. Can you define what ransomware is?
Yes. So ransomware is just that. It is. Remember the old, we're staying home, so we're watching a lot of old TV shows. So remember years ago, somebody was kidnapped and you got a ransom note. That is what is happening with your data. Your data has been kidnapped and somebody is holding it and they want you to pay them to release that data. What's happened is they have gotten into your system. Most cases, it comes through an email. However, that is not the only way that it is deployed. It can be deployed by surfing in at websites that have been what we call cross-scripted, or watching videos that have malicious code in them. But we still see that a majority of our malicious attacks are coming through emails. And so what they do is they deploy a malicious computer application into your system. Now, little misnomer, it does not happen instantaneously. There are some that do that, but there are some that they want to do reconnaissance. They want to know what they have. They want to know where they're at. So they will sit in your system watching what you do I've seen it for months. I had a client that they got the initial infection happened on November 18th, and we didn't know, or they didn't know, that they were in the system until February 4th, I think it was, because the hacker was sitting in the system watching and seeing what they were doing. And one thing that I want to point out about dentists, I get told this a lot. I'm just a dentist. Nobody wants my information. Here's the key. We have their demographic information. So we know where they live, we have their socials, we have their phone numbers. So we have their whole, we know their employer, we have their dental insurance, we have their oral health. But what else do we have? We have to have now their medical insurance information, because we're having to now file certain codes to medical insurance prior to being, for it to come back to dental. And I came out of perio. So we want to know their perio or their medical health. We want to know, are you on a bisphosphonate? We want to know, are you on high blood pressure? And, there's that correlation between oral health and perio disease. So we have the entire picture of a patient. Medical doesn't usually ask for their dental insurance, or when they may ask, when was the last time you've been to a dentist, but they really don't concentrate on what happened at your dentist. We, on the other hand, are looking at the entire person. So we are actually the crown jewel of the health information. We have it all. You can recreate an entire person with the information in a dental office. So it's real important that we maintain that privacy.
Thank you.
Good. So, but a couple more questions came in after you talked about routers being outdated there. How do you find out if they're outdated? Can you update them, like with antivirus? Yeah.
Okay, so some routers do have the capability of what we call doing a firmware update. But if your router has only the capability of doing what we call WPA, which is wireless Wi-Fi point access, that technology is out of date and needs to be, the router just needs to be totally replaced. Ideally, we're coming out with WPA3 right now, but WPA2 or WPA3 is a doable thing. What you have to do is you have to go into the configuration screens. When you first got that router, it was either an application on your phone or in your computer or website that you had to go to put in that router. And again, you want to have a separate password just for that particular device, different from any other device in your home, different from the Ring camera or the Amazon tool. you want to go in and see, and it will tell you what the configurations options are. And a lot of times we don't know what they mean, so we leave them off. So I'm encouraging everyone to go in and check your Wi-Fi configuration. And if the WPA is off, even if it's just WPA, it's better to have it enabled than to have nothing. But ideally, a new router if it's just the WPA. And then you mentioned, so you've got your firewall, you've got your router, you've got your strong passwords, but yes, you want to back up, and multiple backups in multiple locations. The cloud backup is really good. However, in an emergency situation, it takes time for that cloud backup to download back to a computer. So having an on-site backup for the speed of being able to recover quickly is also advantageous. And again, even at home, when was the last time people backed up their home computers? There's a lot of information on your home computers that if you lost it due to a hard drive crash, you would be up the creek. So backing up your home computer, backing up, I know there's a lot of cloud type for residents. You've got Carbonite, you've got Mozy, but backing up is always, the purpose of a backup is to get back up and running as quickly as possible. So we want to have that on-site as well as the off-site backup. I love the cloud backup. Unfortunately, I've had clients that have had to use their cloud backup, but even at that, they're down for a week while that cloud backup restores.
Okay. One of the things that happens in the dental community, and a lot of our teams, we're using it, it's called WhatsApp. Is WhatsApp truly end-to-end encryption where we can share information about patients? Is it safe?
I don't know. I really have not looked into that particular application, to be honest with you, but I will.
Okay.
And get back to you.
Well, and this is third-party reference, but my brother-in-law works for the FBI in the gangs unit, and he said that is the bane of their existence, is they can't even hack.
Okay. Well, so, I'm a member of the FBI InfoGuard, which is a collaboration team between private sector security and the FBI security. So okay. I can check that source real quick. Okay. So if he says that, I'm backing him up on that one.
Well, and you got to don't ever quote me as a reference site. Okay, so
but you have it from third party reference.
Yeah. What are some other things that we should create for our cybersecurity checklist today?
So that's when we're working at home. And the other thing that I want to mention is that, because I heard, I've seen on several different threads and different things that people are being told to discontinue their IT partnership. And I can't recommend that. The reason why is that, first of all, I know a lot of doctors are still wanting to be able to log in to their practices. Just because you're not there does not mean that traffic is not going in and out. And the monitoring that your IT company should be doing should remain in place, because just because we are all house confined does not mean that hackers are house confined. They may be house confined, but all they need is a computer. And we have seen the WHO was hacked. There was a banking organization that was hacked yesterday or day before that took out the main program to banks for transacting money. So hackers are not taking this. This is an opportunity for them. So having that IT company continue to monitor what is happening in your practice is critical. They're able to monitor from home, and they should be able to see if there is any activity that is out of the norm. And this is why monitoring is so critical, and having that IT partner, because you need to have a baseline to know what the activity in your practice is. So when there is an uptick of activity, they know this is not a normal thing. This is an abnormality that we need to look into as quickly as possible, because this may be data going out. And so this is not the time to stop that relationship. Also, I know a lot of doctors are wanting to access their practice, and there's some free ways of doing that. But one of those ways is using remote desktop. That requires that port 3389 be open. And that means that it has a known vulnerability. And that means that hackers, there's bots that scan the internet that do nothing but look for that port to be open. And once they see that that port's open, they try to go in. So I recommend that you get with your IT partner and have them create for you a virtual private network, an encrypted tunnel into your practice. Or the other option would be to use a remote desktop program such as TeamViewer or Splashtop. But again, make sure that you're using the current version. I know a lot of times when we're conducting risk analysis, I'll go into practices and I'll see that they're using maybe TeamViewer 9 or 8. It hasn't been updated. I think TeamViewer is up to 14 right now. That means that the security levels are at level 9 instead of level 12. And we want to keep our applications as current as possible. So the next thing we need to be doing is making sure that we're patching our computers at home as well in our practice, and that we have a current antivirus. Antivirus is usually about $50 to $60, and you can get 3 or 4 computers on that for your home. I highly recommend the paid version because anytime you're using something for free, you are the product. So you don't have that full protection because they don't have to adhere to it because you're not paying them for this service. So I highly recommend a commercial grade antivirus. Quickbooks. What about remote? Okay, so I didn't quite see that. Saw one chat about the remote access you give to Quickbooks. Okay, so when you're giving that is a temporary request that the Quickbooks or the practice manager gives you. They're using a secure method to do that. They are downloading an application to your computer. I recommend that you go in and take that off and just use it again the next time you need that. Again, anytime, the less we have on our computers that have access to the outside world, the more secure we are. Most times when you're using Quickbooks will ask you to please remain at your computer to watch what they're doing to make sure that they're not going into something that they shouldn't go into. And usually most practice management will do that as well. So it's about having that physical control of staying there and watching them, not going and getting a cup of coffee.
So that brings up a good point. There's a lot of people that want to remotely connect.
Yes.
Now softwares, especially in dental offices, you get on any chat with help, I need help with my software, and they remotely connect. Do we always need to have someone sitting at the computer and watching when that happens?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then once they're done, go into your Windows applications and remove the application that they used to remote into your computer.
Very cool. Any other items that you think are critical? I'm building quite the checklist for myself today.
So we were taught that's what we should be doing at home. But one of the other things that we should be doing home, every practice should have a security management program. Again, stop looking at HIPAA as a regulation. Look at it as a tool. The security rule is a great guide for implementing a strong security foundation in your practice. The first thing you should do is to do a risk analysis. But to do that, as we briefly touched on, you need to have certain controls and data in place. And what a risk analysis does is it looks at your existing controls, security controls, and see what you might need to add to protect what you have, your assets. So this is why you need to have a list of your assets. You need to have a written security manual. There's actually several cases that are going on right now where employees are claiming nobody ever told me because it wasn't in writing. And so we want to have written policies and written procedures. And now's a great time to be working on your security manual. You want to have a sanction policy. I mentioned that we had a rule when you left the house, you had to go through and make sure that all the doors were locked. What happens if you don't follow the rules? There has to be repercussions. That's what a sanction policy is. I mean, how many times do we see doctors saying, my hygienist left and took my patients? A sanction policy would prohibit that, because they would know that we have a sanction policy that says that if you contact our patients outside of your scope of your employment, then and you do it for malicious intent, we may prosecute. So having that sanction policy, having a security officer, having the duties listed out. And if you're going to, I know doctors, we want you to be productive, but if you delegate your duties, some of the duties to the office manager, it's real important that your team knows that office manager has the authority to act in your place. Have a policy that writes out what those duties are, what she's enabled to do, and how she can do them. That kind of thing. Yes. I can't hear you.
So many questions are coming in now. Somebody just asked what I was thinking. We're Mac people. So I'm assuming, I live with this thought that Mac doesn't have any viruses, and I'm so glad I have a PC. And then also Patterson does not recommend, Patterson software does not recommend any antivirus other than Microsoft. How do you feel about that? Can you speak to that?
Okay. So I always recommend that you have a commercial grade antivirus. Windows Defender has come a long way. There was a time that we advised that you didn't use Windows Defender at all. It has come a long way. However, I still think that you need to have that commercial grade, because you can configure you have stronger configuration capability in that. I know that a lot of companies, IT companies, and this is why having the IT partner is so critical. And I recommend that you get an IT partner that understands dentistry. I see a lot of times where it's a break and fix guy who can come in and fix a printer but doesn't have a clue what a sensor is. But having that IT partner that understands the delicacy between dentistry, between the sensors having to talk to the practice managers, because I know that as much as they would like to think that we all use one line of products, I can tell you that is not always the case. And I also am going to say that there are a lot of supporting applications that practices use to function other than the practice management. And this is where having those applications and kind of classifying them, what is critical to your operation, is so important, because there's patient information that is held in those other applications. So having a good, strong IT partner that understands the intricacies of the various types of programs, EagleSoft, Dentrix, is critical. And I recommend a paid subscription, antivirus subscription versus Windows Defender, because I will tell you, I've seen several times occurred to my mind. There's several times that Windows has updated and has caused Dentrix to crash because the update of the security update causes it to crash. So again, having that IT partner that does a procedure we call sandboxing. They put the application and the update into a virtual box or into a box that no one's using, and they update it to make sure that nothing happens and before it is pushed out. So that's why it's important to have that partner on hand and work with that. Let's see.
We have a comment on here about having just one virus software because multiple will cancel each other out. Is that, can we speak?
Yeah. And also, wait, can I ask you to comment on this too? So we just, at the beginning of the year, we did I think everybody should always do an insurance evaluation. So, and our insurance person is really good. And so she recommended in January, a cybersecurity policy, which we hadn't had before. And she's like, no, if you get hacked, you should have insurance. And so we did. So can you speak on what Jenny's question is and that question?
Okay. So again, that's why having the security or having an IT company, it varies depending on your particular office and your configuration. I recommend one, not two, because sometimes they will conflict with each other. But when I see that, I have a conversation with the ITs and they will usually tell me why they choose to do what they're able to do. I've seen some offices where it conflicts. And so obviously we tell them to shut one or the other down. It's usually Windows Defender gets shut down. And the other thing is that when an IT company is using a virus, antivirus program that they can support, they're making sure it's up to date. And you're required to keep logs. So they have the ability to monitor those logs, where in a practice, if you're just using Windows Defender, I know you're not monitoring those logs. So it's important to have I prefer the paid version versus the free version versus the one that comes with Windows. And your question was?
Insurance policy against being hacked.
Insurance. Oh, yes. I firmly believe that everybody should have a policy against being hacked. One of the services that we provide is incident response, which sadly is where doctors have been hacked or compromised in some way or another, and we have to work through the roller coaster, the emotional roller coaster that goes with it, and the steps that you need to take. Every practice as part of HIPAA should have a breach notification or a breach incident response plan, and we help you to work through that and work through the requirements in having to handle a breach. I will tell you that one of the questions that I see on the application for breach notification or for breach insurance is, are you HIPAA compliant? Well, of course, we're marking yes. I had a doctor that was part of the Wisconsin breach that had that insurance. And when the breach happened, they started asking him questions. When was your last risk analysis? What is that? I've never had one of those. Oh, you're not HIPAA compliant, no benefit. So know what that policy says. I've seen a lot of the policies that say we will only cover if you have to report. Well, there's a lot of steps that have to be done prior to determining, do you have to report? And hopefully you don't have to report. So it's having the steps in place and knowing what is necessary and using HIPAA as the security rule as a guide. Go through the rule and say, have it laid out. Do a risk analysis, have a security management plan, sanction policy, monitoring, security officer. That's the first 5 things in the HIPAA security rule right there.
Yeah, we're good. I'm creating my own checklist on the fly here, but do you have a best practices checklist that you could send over that we could give to the 1,300 people watching right now?
I'm actually working on a course, step by step through HIPAA security rule. That's how I'm spending my downtime, step by step through a seminar to help doctors to implement that. Right now, I'm still in that process, but I hope to be launching that very quickly here. Okay, and to answer the Mac question, so there is this misnomer that Macintosh or Apple products are totally safe. Now, they still should have the same precautions. It's just that Microsoft has a wider market share. More of us run Windows than we do Apples. In my house, we have both. We have the Macintosh user, the Apple users, and the Windows users. It's just that because there's more people using Windows, hackers are more apt to if they want instant, they're more apt to use that platform. However, there are some that like a challenge, and they have created programs that can launch malicious code into Apple products as well. So are they more secure? Yes, with caution, if that makes sense.
Couple more questions.
Sure.
Any specific recommendations, insurance policies, or companies for breach insurance? And then what dollar amount are you going to be looking for coverage in a cybersecurity policy?
So I can tell you, I don't have a specific program or company. I can tell you that I've worked extensively with a lot of doctors that have the Doctors Company, which is a company, I believe, out of California now. I think it was actually used to be in Jacksonville, but it's now in California. They have an endorsement with a company called Beasley, and Beasley Insurance is the recognized big company that handles breaches. So I've done a lot of work with the Beasley company. They have a endorsement that's on their policy that gives a $50,000 rider or endorsement to assist with the initial cost of an investigation, because under the security rule, whenever there is a breach, you need to investigate. And the only way that you can really truly investigate what happened is to do what is called a forensic investigation. And this takes a specific type of engineer that understands how to go back and read all of those logs, your firewall logs, your antivirus logs, all those logs that your IT company is preserving for you, hopefully, or that you have, to see exactly what happened. Was any information going out? I had a doctor that the breach happened sometime in October, and they were turning on workstation 14 at 3 a.m. in the morning and exfiltrating packets. But nobody knew it because they were also turning the computer off. So when they came in the morning, it was off. So it takes a forensic investigator to be able to do that. And that insurance policy will help to offset the cost involved with that. And I believe that is right around $50,000 to $100,000.
Yeah.
If you have to report, the cost goes up. Forensic investigation, you're looking at between $12,500 and $25,000. Then you have to have the attorneys that are involved with helping you to navigate through, and they're going to be charging roughly between $350 to $475 an hour. I'm just going with what I've seen various areas of the country. That's before you even have to report.
Yeah, there's some weird stuff. Like John, our video guy, and we were on our own Zoom account, and somebody had hacked our Zoom account. And so we were looking at videos of this guy in France going, you don't know, and he was using
Parlez-vous français?
Zoom account. Like he hacked it and was using it, but he was using it 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, if somebody's hacking my Zoom account and using it, it's crazy.
Complicate that password and 2-factor authentication, because at least you would have gotten a text saying, wait, somebody's trying to get into my Zoom account?
For sure. Okay, I have so many questions. Okay. Even before this, we had dentists that were hacked. Okay.
Yes.
Now, let me propose what I said at the beginning. A lot of people, when they get hacked, like in Wisconsin, I think the number was 300. Was it 300 or 400 dental practices? 400 were
plus.
Shut down. They were shut down completely for 2 weeks, or
at least
2 weeks. So a lot of them were ransomed with Bitcoin, which means they couldn't get back in. What do you do if you're hacked and that happens? And you said, don't. While people are giving advice out there, just pay them to get it back. What would you do if you got hacked?
So we recommend not to pay. And your brother-in-law with the FBI?
The FBI, yeah.
Okay. The FBI recommends not paying. And the reason why is, first of all, there's no guarantee that they're going to give you all of your data back, because now you're an easy mark. Then if they do give you your data back, there's no guarantee that they're not putting code into your data that will give you, not have it happen to you again 3-4 months down the road. So we recommend not to give your data back. Or not to do that. That said, we had a doctor here in Florida in December that was hacked. And because he chose not to pay, the hackers began contacting his patients directly. So now we have gone from a non-reportable, because I believe that it was a medical doctor, and he's under a program that requires him to be HIPAA compliant and monitored and checked. So he had the right things in place, but because patients were now being contacted, it now became a reportable offense. So there's a fine line. You have to be able to demonstrate beyond a shadow of a doubt that no data was exfiltrated, and that comes back to that forensic investigation. And that was his mistake. He did not conduct the forensic investigation. He just went off of what his IT company told him, and it wasn't detailed enough. And so it's real important that you call in the event of an attack, that you call in someone an incident response mitigator that can walk you through all those steps like we do. I had a client that was part of another breach after the Wisconsin breach that happened, that again did attack the IT company. And she started the week before Thanksgiving was when the first indication that there was an attack happening. It, of course, all through the Thanksgiving week, nobody was really knowing that anything happened. She figured it out the Friday after Thanksgiving. She was able to fully return to full operation January 4th. That's a long time to not be able to fully operate.
Absolutely. This has been scary, mind-blowing, and appropriate.
And I don't want it to be scary, because we have the best tools at our hands, and we need to just take advantage of them. HIPAA does not have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be ridiculously complicated. It is common sense cybersecurity protocols that are used in every industry. It's just that instead of protecting financial information for PCI, we're protecting PHI. Or if you are my family works in Department of Defense, so that goes without saying what has to be protected. They have the same protocols. It's just we protect patient information versus top security information.
Yeah. Now, I know a lot of people are going to want your checklist when you're done with that, and they also want to know where they can find you and reach out to you. I'm going to encourage you, if I'm going to voluntold you for this, if that's okay, just to contribute to our Facebook group, because these conversations are really important, and I want to keep them going because there's a lot in here. Two-factor authentication, people are asking about Log Me In, and we don't have time to answer all these. There's a lot of really good questions in here, and I think you could really help a lot of people. So
I'm always willing to help.
Yeah.
That Log Me In question popped up a lot about the safety of Log Me In.
Okay, so again, it just depends on how you're doing it. Make sure the application is current and that you have the other layers of security in place. But Log Me In, Splashtop, TeamViewer, current versions on both ends, definitely.
Okay,
but don't leave them open. Don't leave them hanging. Close them when you're done.
Yeah, this has been spectacular. I really, really appreciate your help, and well needed. So thank you very much. Hey, if you enjoyed this week's episode of the Best Practice Show podcast, we invite you to check out actdentalu.com. ActDentalU is the essential resource for anyone at any stage of starting, growing, or running a great dental practice. Whether you're just getting started or whether you're a well-established dental practice, ActDentalU can help you and your team get to the next level. With our extensive course library and all the current best practices in dentistry, and our Friday masterclasses and workshops for you and your team, and a supportive, active community to help you along the way with encouragement and feedback, ActDentalU is the perfect place for any dentist to create a better dental practice so that you can have the freedom to enjoy a better life. So check it out at actdentalu.com.